Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Battlefield Podcast. This time, we have a very requested guest, Mr. Flakfire. Some of you will know him from Did You Know YouTube Shorts, which we may touch on later. That's always good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hello, how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very well, very well. You want to give a brief introduction for people that may not know you? Somehow, if they're part of the Battlefield community, they should.
They should. Some of them might not like me. I tend not to be super critical about a lot of things, but that's not really my thing, right? But yeah. So hey everyone, it's Flakfire. I primarily do shorts on YouTube, Battlefield oriented shorts, a lot of historical stuff. Yeah, and I'm currently seeing how long I can stretch Battlefield shorts until the next one comes out. And I'm running on like 2 years or something now, and I still haven't run out of ideas. I think it's getting close though.
That's actually, I mean, running any Battlefield content for this amount of time is incredibly impressive. So yeah, I've watched a bunch of your shorts. They are great. A lot of history-focused things surrounding Battlefield 1. Today, we're going to talk about some aspects of Battlefield 1 and how Battlefield 6 should take from BF1. We might go into some things regarding Battlefield 1, like maybe some of the more controversial things, you know, because...
we want the sweet spot back, right?
No, we'll talk about that.
No?
No. we can avoid that. But we might also touch on some BF6 class system news that was obviously just released a couple days ago, and that everyone's been talking about that. So, without further ado, I suppose, what made Battlefield 1 so successful? How can BF6 even hope to replicate the initial, I guess, avalanche of hype and excitement that BF1 had? Can they do that at all?
I certainly think they can do it. I mean, like, we look at 2042, which we all know how you feel about 2042. I've been playing it for like 2 hours this morning, and I'm like...
Are you right there with me?
But I'm talking about the original, like, reveal. Like, we remember the original trailer for Battlefield 2042 and just the amount of hype that was around that. Like, that was serious hope from the Battlefield community in terms of like, this game could be good, like this is going to be a return to form, this is going to be everything kind of that we've been wanting and waiting for. And unfortunately they didn't really follow it up with the substance that the community was looking for, but I certainly think had they have done that, the energy would have been there, right? The community would have stood behind it a lot more than they did. But you look at Battlefield 1 I think has always been kind of that perfect storm. Because you look at it like Battlefield, obviously going back to 1942, is kind of known as this historically rooted franchise. So you have World War I, you have at a conflict at the time not a ton of people were familiar with. And everything was sort of new. Like, you look, I've never seen that gun before. I don't know what that does. I don't know what battle this is. What is that guy wearing? Why does he have like a medieval mask on? Like, did this stuff actually happen in World War I? And you know, that combined with sort of a weak reception of that year's Call of Duty, like a fantastic trailer. There's alpha beta for that, community test environment for that, right? DICE, EA did everything right that they needed to do with that. And it paid dividends for them. I personally don't think that, you know, okay, going to a modern era Battlefield has the same kind of viral potential as something like Battlefield 1. Just because, hey, we're kind of living in it. Like, a lot of this stuff is very familiar to us. There isn't kind of that innate deep curiosity that people may have for kind of the time period. But I do think, you know, a lot of the successes replicatable. I don't know to the tune of like 100 million people, which has been a number that's been thrown around here lately, but I do think it has the potential to be a successful game, but it depends very much on the state of the game when it comes out. You know, the reveal trailer, obviously, but you know how much that's backed up by gameplay, dev involvement, dev listening. I think they could also do with a humbling. Don't stand on your ego the first couple of weeks of the reveal and launch. We know how
They
that's
love
gone.
it.
I'm just saying, like you can do it, but
They love
I
it.
wouldn't. But I do think the potential is there, and especially with the sort of fatigue that I think exists in battle royales at the moment, Warzone, right, that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people are going to be open to looking at something different. I think they were looking for something different with 2042, and it just kind of gave us Battlefield Light, and you know didn't differentiate itself from the larger swath of offerings that were out there at the time.
Yeah, I mean, you really hit everything there. Perfect Storm with BF1 is 100% right. I think one of the big talking points with that game and why it was potentially so successful is, of course, Call of Duty at the time was at like a low point, and then of course the hype with BF1 that you mentioned with how just how good the trailer was, and of course the historical interest. Basically, they just didn't fuck anything up in terms of the game coming together. BF1, in my opinion, it didn't have a perfect launch, but it had the best launch of a recent Battlefield title. Certainly better than the 3 games before it, maybe, with Hardline 4 and BF3. And certainly better than BF5 and 2042, maybe combined. So,
I'd agree with that. Fiskin Hero in the chat says, describing the success of Battlefield 1, could it have happened with Battlefield 5? And this is, I want to go to this because I think it's a really fascinating question.
Let's.
Because DICE's approach to Battlefield 5 in reality was the same approach they did with Battlefield 1. And I say that from the point of view of like, if you look at Battlefield 1 and you understand how historically inaccurate it is and how, gamified and casual of an experience that is, DICE made the fatal error of assuming that people knew the same amount of stuff about World War II as they did about World War I. So, like, you have these narratives in Battlefield 1, or like these ideas of like, this is how this was and whatever. And culturally, we just don't have that deep of a memory, especially in our case as Americans. Like, we were late entries to World War I. We didn't have, it's not like our epic, greatest generation. Like, we came, we saw, we kicked everyone's ass kind of thing. World War II, however, gets talked about. It gets taught a lot. It's a lot. It's a passion or a hobby for a lot of people. So when, for example, we look at Battlefield 1's single player mission with Lawrence of Arabia. Okay,
Yeah.
so we look at it like historically, like it's not really what happened. There's a lot of inaccuracies with that. I would argue it's just as historically inaccurate as, some of the missions in Battlefield 5, but the difference is that people didn't know enough to counter it or to get upset or offended over it. And that I've always found is really interesting.
There's a certain expectation. Because I remember that certain expectation was also on myself and obviously everyone else. Because I remember with the BF5 reveal trailer, they just simply did it wrong. They did. I'll never budge from that. If you watch the BF5 reveal trailer, when people think World War II, they don't think that. So that was almost fatal from the beginning with BF5. And then, of course, aside from like any sort of trailer, the trailer obviously pissed everyone off from the very beginning. And then on top of that, so you have people with a negative connotation already from the BF5 trailer going into the BF5 launch.
They want to be mad.
They want to be mad,
point,
and then they see the game, and then it justifies them being mad because it was just bad at release. Like, it was super buggy. Anyone that played BF5 at launch knows this. It was, you know, the map design very questionable, visibility very questionable, content very questionable. It just all culminated. It was essentially, I understand your point with, like, they actually did technically the same thing in direction.
Yeah.
Compared to BF1 to BF5, but it just didn't.
You're getting it.
It just didn't pan out at all. So
yeah, and the kind of doubling down of the arrogance did not
it
did not help. Did not help that.
So with BF6, you mentioned it may not have like that viral quality because everything's so familiar with it being a viral, a modern game. I think, at least from my perspective, it's just been. I don't necessarily think it almost matters what Battlefield does. I just think everyone is so tired of the low quality and like just them getting it wrong that I think if Battlefield finally gets it right in terms of quality, content, just giving people
even like
a decent
80%.
experience. No, literally even like not even that.
Right.
Like 70%, people would be like, "Oh my god, fucking finally. Like thank you. Like Jesus Christ, this is the greatest game ever. We're buying it. I'm pre-ordering it, buying the Ultimate Edition."
Yep.
And that's what people, that is the sentiment I see in my comment section, on Reddit, on Twitter, even from myself. Like, dude, now I have Battlefield releases like under my belt. Unfortunately, I missed the I missed BF1 basically entirely. Started streaming at the end of BF1, saw BF5's launch, instantly died, basically all hype, like gone. Saw 2042's launch, actually worse than BF5. So this is all I've ever seen. So I would love to see them get it even 70% right.
Yeah.
And I think
like,
they have great potential.
Nails it. He's like, we sound like crack addicts. Like, kind of. You know, it's been one of those things that, especially for people like me and Enders, where it's like we're fans of the game. Like, we like playing Battlefield. We love playing the game. Like, we love the structure of it. We love what it offers in terms of the gameplay experience. And on top of that, like, we're content creators. Like I said, I mean, like, I've been stretching shorts for like 2 years. I'm like, please, for the love of God, give me something that I can work with.
There was a time in 2042, and it's this kind of a meme thumbnail of me now, where there was 19 weeks of literally nothing. And that was a true test of, can I even make videos on the game anymore? And I did it. I don't know how I did it. I would love to go back to that 19-week period of YouTube uploads just to see what I even made. But no, 100%, we're both content creators. But for me, it's always been, I'm a player first, content creator second. Like I've always said in my videos, I'm just a player that that happens to make content around the game.
Yeah.
And I think that actually pushes through with like just the way I approach videos and what I talk about. But man, it would be nice to see them. I think what we've seen and like heard of BF6 so far is good. I think it's good. I think it has very good potential. And this is maybe where we segue into some of the BF6 class stuff.
Sure.
Arguably, they're shooting themselves in the foot with the class system stuff. Maybe it's a DICE ego thing. Maybe it's an EA pushing skin sales thing where they want all the weapons to be universal, and really DICE doesn't have any choice in that regard. We don't actually know how that's working internally. But I tweeted this a couple days ago. The class system stuff is very complicated. We'll get into the opinions about it. But the community, the larger Battlefield community, in my opinion, sees their direction with the class system and their sort of refusal so far to listen to the community as DICE's/EA's first chance to listen to community feedback alongside Battlefield Labs. And I've seen a lot of people saying, well, what is the point of Battlefield Labs if they're not going to listen to us on this particular subject already? So the strike one for a lot of people, and people are already questioning, what is the actual point of any of this? Like, oh my god, it's actually over. Like, it's like, oh my fucking god, the game isn't even announced.
I've seen some of those comments, and there is a lot of that. And I think I'm not saying that DICE and EA don't understand that. Like, this is very much probably more so a social interaction than it is a a game design and building and feedback and iteration kind of thing.
Social in what regard? Like with DICE's ability to communicate what they're doing?
Yes, and their ability to demonstrate that they are listening, or that they are interested, or that they're taking in these bits of feedback, which they've said that they are, right? Like, we read the blog post, and it's like, we are listening, we're doing this, that, and whatever. But it is something that it is admittedly like, okay, interaction number one, people want this, and the answer has been no.
And behind that, there's a lot more, because behind them, in the community's eyes, not listening with like the class system stuff, there are entire other games, right, with 2042 and BF5. People hold that, like, they don't forget that. So they're already basically 2 games down, and then this game they see, with obviously everything being posted on Reddit, I think the community sees massive potential, and they don't want them to mess it up. So they're being like, I think maybe extra hard this time, which they should. They should be, but we know how DICE is with this.
I think it is like, you are correct. Like, there is a history there, and it's the history of the games and the game design, but it's also the history of the interaction with developers and with EA, and I've said it many, many times, but it's just like, EA and DICE have kind of put themselves into a position like, you don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. Like, and it's not just an arbitrary label or something that's been cast upon you. Like, that's earned based on previous behavior and communication. And I do think that they have made some significant headway in terms of trying to shed that and trying to demonstrate that they are listening to fans. Like, we look at the post-launch of Battlefield 2042, like, they did a lot of significant changes and overhauls, and they demonstrated that they were listening to the extent of leaving, and they did change some of the class specialist stuff. But I think for people like me and you, probably, we just looked at that and it's like, you could have just done that in the first place when we told you to do that in the first place. And I think a lot of people are seeing similarities between that and what is happening right now, in terms of like, we're not locking class weapons, and maybe that's a segue into it, but it just feels like familiar territory. Like,
yeah,
we're on the verge of greatness here. Like, every Battlefield veteran fan is like, it's right there. We're this close. And they're saying no. And personally, I don't think like class locking weapons. I'm working on a video about it right now where I'm gonna like tear into it. But in reality, do I think it is that important? Like, no. Like, it matters far less than actual class structure, which is also something that we'll talk about later. But
I made this point in multiple videos, so we'll pause right. So I guess with that, we'll segue into the BF6 like class news stuff.
Sure.
You already mentioned they've made 2 class posts. It doesn't appear at this time they're willing to budge on it very much. However, along the way, they've continued to emphasize, both on Reddit, I think even on Twitter, Total FPS has been everywhere on this, saying nothing is finalized until we say it is. Whether or not that actually matters, we'll find out.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, is an open weapon system versus a class-locked weapon system the absolute end of the world? No. realistically, it's not. It's important in the eyes of the community. However, in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion, there are so many things that are far more consequential to the success of the next game than if a medic can use a bolt action. And one thing I want to touch on first is a lot of people look at 2042 and they say, well, okay, 2042 had open weapons. This doesn't work. 2042 also had specialists, which heavily dictates what you play when you play it. Yeah. And the specialists are also horrifically balanced to the point where I have almost exclusively played McKay and Falk for my like 2,000 plus hours of playtime, with a little dash of Zane if I just feel like pissing someone off with the airburst. This will not happen in BF6 because BF6 does not have specialists. And just from their direction, which we'll dive into more, the classes appear to be far more well-defined.
Yes. And I
so
think
if you want to take it away.
Yeah, that's absolutely what they need to do here. Because like we look at it, you know, Battlefield 2042 is just a big, confusing, mushy problem. In my opinion, like in terms of playing,
you're 100% right.
You've got so many specialists. You've got unlocked
verticality map spam
for the classes. Yet you have verticality. You've got wide open maps. Initially, there was a very heavy lean into 128 players. Like you just have so many variables that it just sort of amalgamates into a really, I don't say like squishy or mushy gameplay experience, because like I don't have the technical expertise in game design to be like, this is why this is bad. I'm just like, it doesn't work. And it doesn't feel good. It's a very frustrating experience. I've called it a frustration simulator in the past because it's just very little is predictable. And I think predictability is important to the enjoyment in a gameplay experience.
Particularly particularly for the casual player base.
Yeah.
But 2042's big sin in that regard, in my opinion, is not the open weapon system. It's more so Battlefield 2042, and this is corroborated by me doing like coaching sessions for players. Battlefield 2042's map design and general awareness it demands from players is ludicrously high. It is incredibly high. Even some of the best players in the game are like, what is happening here? Like, this is so hard to actually figure out. So I think that's a separate issue. That's like map design, all that sort of stuff. But a lot of people would argue, you know, Battlefield has always had, you know, class-lock weapons. And in their view, seeing an engineer and understanding they can have a certain weapon type, seeing a sniper and understanding they have a certain weapon type, it helps people, I suppose, play the game. But that is, and maybe I'll pull up the chart. I have a couple of charts. I think I DM'd you.
We talked about it.
Yeah,
the other
we did.
Day,
we did talk about this. So, yeah, I really do need to pull up the chart for this. Actually,
yeah.
I can just,
you know, personally, I subscribe to the first chart, and like that's my thought process, and that's how I look at it.
Yeah,
like I play Battlefield different than you though, because like you're this very high skill player. Like I'm just some guy who makes videos when he has free time and enjoys playing the game. And I tend to play it much more positionally. I don't have, you know, the same level of awareness and skill. So like I do rely on more environmental cues and some of the context of like, okay, who am I going up against, etc. You know, like what are the directions that this can go?
Yes. And here we have the chart that I sent you last night. So this builds off of the point of like a lot of the player base thinks Battlefield plays in this very sort of very predictable thing where you take a ton of things into account. Every single thing you take into account regarding classes, what weapons they have, engagement distances, all that sort of thing. And this comes from Marble Duck's recent video. Shout out Marble Duck, you know, one of the goats. I'll try to get him on the podcast later. So this is how I think a lot of the general player base thinks the game plays. So you go from, spotting an enemy, you assess what class they have. And then based on what class they have, you make a micro decision, right? So for instance, if you see an engineer player, has an RPG, has an SMG, avoid splash damage, use mid-long range fire, then you go over here, engage using most viable course of action, which results in you either getting killed by them or like eliminating the target, right? But in reality, if you take a look at this other chart, again from MarbleDuck's video, shout out MarbleDuck, I think you'll see that this is actually how the game truly plays 99% of the time. Where you go, okay, I see an enemy. If I engage this person, can I kill it? No. Okay, I reposition. You ask yourself the same question. If the answer is yes, you engage using the most viable option, and then you eliminate the enemy. And I've seen some comments going, well, Enders must subscribe to the first thought process, the first chart that I showed, because he performs, I guess, better in game. But actually, it's kind of like as simple as me grug, me see enemy, me shoot them. This is actually how some of even the best players in the game really think like this.
I'm sure, but it's one of those things again. Like I think it applies more to the higher skill players. I think, and you were like, you mean the lower skill players have a lengthier thought process on this? I'm like, I guess so. I don't know, because like we can't rely on just like, I know I can drop that guy. Like, I'll look at it and be like, I think I can. I'm not really sure, and obviously if somebody pops up in front of me, like, yeah, that's going to be my response is to be like, oh, he's right there. What am I going to do? Do I rotate out? Do I come back? Like, what is going to happen?
I think that stems from perhaps some more casual players being they're not sure of the priorities. That's a huge thing that
I also think they're not sure of their skill.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Definitely. With BF6 in their direction with the class system, they are going in this direction where they're saying, we are defining classes via methods other than weapons. So we're going to do all this stuff with signature weapons, like signature traits and class trees, and making sure the weapons have signature gadgets that make sense for the class, and within the different training paths you can take, it'll really incentivize a certain play style and all this sort of stuff. And I think that makes sense. I've always thought, at least how I think about the game, I've always thought gadgets play way more of a defining role than weapons, and there's some gameplay things that help corroborate this. Like, just for instance, we talked about this last night. If I'm in a vehicle and I see an engineer, I'm going to kill the engineers because I know they have a certain gadget type. Yeah. And a lot of people bring up, BF4. They're like, oh, well, BF4, if I see an engineer, I know they could have an SMG. But I think a lot of what people miss is BF4, they had a bunch of different universal weapon categories. That game wasn't nearly as predictable as people really try to push. So, but one thing that's remained constant is the predictability with gadgets. And I think that is really, for me, the main reason why I choose a class. It's not necessarily the weapon, because if you look at how I guess I personally played Battlefield, stretching all the way back to Battlefield 3, the result is the same regardless of class-locked weapons or not. I always play the class, more often than not, with self-sustain the most. So whether it be medic / assault, they call it differently based on what game. Yeah. And I will switch classes based on the situation. Sometimes for weapons, mostly for gadgets. Like, I will switch if a tank needs to get killed. I will switch if my team's getting destroyed and need to revive. I will switch maybe to put a spawn beacon behind if I have a certain flank play, jumping out of a helicopter, right? I do this all the time in 2042. Try to get spawns. Your whole squad's there now. Boom. The weapons have always played less of a role, and I think for me, it may actually de-incentivize me if the weapons are strictly locked. And BF1 is an example. BF1, they're kind of rocking a hard place with that game because there was so much in that game that actually like basically wasn't used in combat. So I think with them class locking weapons, they kind of had to do that in a very strict manner that they did. But for me, that resulted in me sort of wanting to play a class less, even if the situation called for it. Assault is a good instance of this. Assault just in that game feels wonky to me, like just the way the weapons are and their application. But this plays into them nerfing the movement. I think the Assault class is way more viable without the second slide nerf, which we may touch on. But if you want to touch on some of the class stuff that I said, we'll wait to talk about movement if we're even going to go into that.
Yeah, I mean, for Battlefield 1, and I think it's really kind of the last great example of kind of that pure class and weapon gameplay. Because like we look at it and actually like partially, closer towards the end of Battlefield 1, they added like the little perk abilities. I don't know what they're technically called, but you had like the three things.
The
that you
little
could
like
choose.
slink and reciprocity. I think one was for medic. Where correct me if I'm wrong, chat. You heal someone, you get a certain amount of health back.
Yeah, there's a few things like that, but they didn't add that until the end, right?
Yes.
Battlefield 5 had kind of these specializations in the classes, and then 2042, you had a bit of that as well, and we can see that continue now in the Battlefield Labs leaks and kind of what the plan is with that. The class system in one and locking the weapons, I do think it produced, and it's my opinion, we talked about it a little bit, but I think it produced a better experience from the point of view of, to me, combat seemed more varied, right? Because I think one of the issues anytime you make it so anybody can choose any weapon anywhere, I think people tend to go very heavily into the meta of like, okay, this is the gun that you want to use. And this morning playing Battlefield 2042, I just got like constantly murked by light machine guns. And having used those a lot of the time, it's like, well, you just don't reload. Like you've got 200 rounds and you just go, and for many players who, maybe on the lower end of the skill set, they're going to look at it like, well, I'm going to die anyway relatively quickly, so I'm just going to completely remove reloading from equation there. But like,
so I have an interesting thing to slightly interject here.
Okay.
I actually just watched yesterday a video from a guy called Eclipse. I actually sent you the video. This would be super interesting for you to watch later. And I haven't seen this video until yesterday either. It was touching on the point of open weapons sort of pushes people into using certain thing with a certain class. And this YouTuber actually isn't a Battlefield YouTuber. Like, he just does a bunch of different stuff. And he was annoyed with this point getting pushed by the Battlefield Reddit so much in regards to 2042 and open weapons. So he said, I'm going to go in and actually collect data on this. And this video is a month old. So it is in late stage 2042 where the meta should be established and the player should be using everything according to what Reddit is saying. There should be a clearly defined thing. He admits in the video his sample size is a little small. I think he said he played 3 matches for 3 game modes. And the data that he got was, in some games, there were upwards of 35 different unique weapons being used in the match. And this was corroborated between the 3 separate game modes. There was no one standout weapon that was selected by people. And the way he did this was he sat in the server, recorded every single kill in the kill feed for the whole game.
Yeah.
And I think the number 1 weapon at the end of it was the SFAR with like 10. The PP29, shockingly, which is a meta weapon, had I think 3. Snipers were up there, vehicles were up there, But the general point of the video was based on the data that I sort of collected. In his opinion, there's actually still a ton of weapon variety, 30 plus, 40 plus weapons still being used. So I'm going to do the same video. I want to see if it is consistent.
I would really like to see it. I would love to see it in terms of, not only specific which weapons are used in terms of the meta, but also what you would traditionally, associate as class weapons. The other thing is that you're looking at it, it's like which weapons are successful at getting people killed. So it's like if you have, a large number of people who aren't getting significant kills, but they're also using the same weapon, you kind of got to account for some of that. I think a bigger sample size would work really well for that. And again, like, I don't necessarily know, but it's just like, I look at, for example, Call of Duty. If I'm watching a Warzone stream or something like that, like the meta is very clear. Like
It's so sweaty though. That's the
it
thing.
is. It is, but you see it. You see it. And like every combat interaction between people in that game is liable to be like the same weapons are being used. And if they're not, it's just because they haven't been able to find that weapon or call in their loadout or like whatever.
I think that may partially be because it's such a high stakes mode that it legitimately does not make any sense for you to like nerf yourself.
Yeah.
Which is why PC players switch to controller. But
yeah. Yeah. I do agree though, but looking at it for me, it's something of like, I like the innate variety that comes out of locking class weapons and the structure. The other thing, it's like a dimension of choice for the game. Like you look at, okay, what are the trade-offs? What are the, things that I get from choosing this versus that? I think it does de-incentivize people sometimes to choose particular classes. But I also think that's very situational. And I do believe that it helps balance the classes a little bit more. Like you look at it, I think Battlefield historically has always had a really strong eye towards the idea of like, you have this item and like this person has this, here's a counter to that. There's always been kind of this balancing act that's existed there. And I think anytime and again, like some people might not like it, but I think anytime you give somebody more freedom to do something, like they're going to abuse it or like they're going to find a way to maximize, the efficiencies of that. It's part of the game, right? That's how it works. So it's unfortunately one of those things that doesn't really have like a clear answer for me. And we talked about it. I'm like, it's not really that big of a deal for me. I do think it would produce better gameplay. Like this morning, again, playing Battlefield 2042, I'm like, what would it be like? What would the game play like if it had, specifically class locked weapons? Would it be easier to read? Would it be more, tolerable? And again, I don't have data on it, but I feel like in my history of playing Battlefield games that it would be a better experience. I don't think it would be a significantly better experience because, as you've mentioned, there's a lot of dimensions that have problems in that game in terms of gameplay and game design. But I do think it would help minimize maybe some of the unpredictability in that title that makes it such a frustrating experience.
Yeah, 100%. I think one thing, just based on my personal experience playing Battlefield, I think regardless of if they class lock weapons or not, there's always going to be, regardless of anything, there's always going to be a meta. If you look at if I look at my stats, I'm playing BF3 with the M16 and BF4 with the AK and S23 and BF1 with the meta in that game was either you play recon and snipe people with insane snipers, or you play SLRs medics most of the time. Support was also really good, but BF5 SMG, SMG with medic, and then of course 2042 the specialists play heavily into what I selected, playing McKay because he's fundamentally game breaking, and then of course Falk because she's just a medic. I think you're right, there may not be an answer, but if there is an answer, and I made this point in a video that I uploaded today, because I made that big class video thing, pissed people off, then I make another video for clarifications because the topic's so broad. If there is an answer to the class system stuff, if DICE is willing to listen, which so far they haven't shown, it may very well be as simple as just avoid any drama and just listen to the community. And genuinely, the results of this gameplay wise don't matter in comparison to the results of the positive reception you gained from listening to the community. And I see that side of the argument. Well, we both mentioned we personally don't think class locking versus open weapons would matter in the grand scheme of things very much. I personally think this particular conversation about the open weapons versus class lock weapons, if BF6 released with open weapons, I think this conversation would quickly subside to other things. It may still go on, but I think ultimately it will very heavily subside. But as I mentioned in that video that I made, the reason why I am shifting my focus to talking about the BF6 open weapon system in terms of balance is because I personally don't think DICE at this time is going to shift. Because we Battlefield players, guys, we've seen some shit, okay? If DICE 180s after doubling down, I will be shocked, as I think many others will be. Maybe they'll do it, though. Who knows?
I don't think they will. I
don't think they will
I
either.
think very much their mind is made up like this. They likely have data. I think that's something that is easy. It's easy for us to speculate. I'm over here like, I feel like this is a thing. I don't have any data to back that up at all, but they've got the data from 2042, from 5, from 1, from 3, from 4. Do
they have the technology, though, Flakfire?
I'm not going into that. I'm not touching that one. But they've got the data that says, is this really an issue here? And the other thing, we have to look at it like their goal isn't necessarily to make just a successful game, right? Their goal is to make money because that's part of the experience here. And we have to look at it that it is, sort of a give and take in some ways. That maybe classes are being left open because we want to look at things like cosmetics. You have somebody who has their favorite weapon. They want to buy something for that favorite weapon. And if we lock it behind the class structure, they will be less likely to use those weapons, and
which makes
therefore
total sense.
Be less likely to buy something.
Makes total sense, unfortunately.
And that is something to be talked about there. That being said, if there's something to be, and it shouldn't be viewed as this, like, oh, I can have one or the other. Like, I can have a strong class system or class lock weapons, because that's like a false dichotomy, right? Like, you could have both of those things. But if the choice was between the two, and I think if we look at which one will be far more impactful to the gameplay experience, it's going to be a strong class structure, which you've mentioned before. And so far, it looks like it's going to be present in the next Battlefield.
The one thing about the skin stuff, off the top of my head, there was a specific earnings call. This might be a couple of years ago, but I remember, it might have been during BF5 or maybe at the front end of 2042. Battlefield apparently made up like between 2 to 4% of EA's revenue or something. They're pissed about that for sure. Dude. So the skin stuff,
I'm
it
sure
very well may be true about that.
Battlefield has never done cosmetics well. I
feel
very
100%
passionate
agree
about that they have never done it well. I think they missed a ton of opportunities. I think they fundamentally misunderstand like why people play the game and what they are specifically interested in. And I think that was demonstrated by the specialists
Yeah.
in Battlefield 2042. It's just like, I don't care about that. Like, I'm much more interested in, you could look at things like weapon camouflage and whatever, but like the characters, like they want you to like it just seems a very shallow thing of like, we're gonna make these characters and then you'll relate to them.
Yeah, no,
And everybody was like,
we don't care,
no.
bro.
Um, because I don't think that's how we really view the game and kind of enjoy it. Like everything is always about the nameless grunt. It's about what you can do. It's about your relationship to the classes, really, and I guess in some cases the weapons.
Yeah.
And I think there have been instances, little fleets of intelligence there for cosmetics with 2042. I think that they work much better when you tie them into things like the narrative, which personally I find more interesting. I know a lot of people do not care about narrative at all, but like if you look at it, if you have like the 101st Airborne Division, like, and you can go that route and you tap into the history of these things, and somebody's like, I want to do that, or maybe before this action, my character was a firefighter because I do that in real life, and now I have a patch that I can put on my outfit. Like,
Okay.
I go after something like that, but like it's not really about relating to like a character. It never really has been, except for maybe like Gunter in Battlefield 5. Everybody liked Gunter.
I want to get your take on this. I made a video recently where I talked about the in my opinion, what they should do with the cosmetics in Battlefield 6. And what I proposed is for the character cosmetics themselves, they should draw from the historical look of Battlefield characters from the past. So, for instance, all the way the Battlefield 3 soldiers looked and all the faction looks, right? You take all those cosmetics, you maybe split it into head, chest, legs. Maybe that's what you do there. Yeah. And you allow people to essentially play as the BF3 medic in BF6 or the BF3 support from Russian faction or something, or the Chinese faction. Yeah. And you sell those to people. Now, they might be pissed off that they now have to buy how they looked in BF4, but it's a lot better than Santa Boris.
Don't act like we wouldn't buy those things.
Oh,
like if given the opportunity, if there was like a Battlefield Hardline pack, like I would buy
for sure.
That.
And that's what I mentioned in the video as well. I go, maybe we draw some things from Hardline, like people always call that game Cops and Robbers, whatever. But you get some of that, the balaclavas and the sort of streetwear look with, maybe a patch in the arm. I'm a medic, all this stuff. BC2 medic, like someone just said in chat. And you class lock the cosmetics, obviously, because you don't want people playing BC2 medic on BF6 engineer.
Yeah.
So that is, I think, a great way they could do the cosmetics in BF6, where it draws from the history and it doesn't piss people off.
Yeah, I think too, like it sort of rewards the Battlefield veterans in that regard, because you look at it and like one of the things that bothers me in many games is like when they go and they reinvent the wheel every time they go into it. I'm like, why'd you change this? I'm a controller player, but it's like, why they changed the key binding for this? Like, no,
that's
my muscle memory is already there, that kind of thing. But it's like, hey, if I'm playing and I see, the Bad Company 2 medic, like I'm gonna know that's a medic because I played Bad Company 2 back in the day.
Exactly.
So like my personal connection and history of playing Battlefield is kind of rewarded in that moment. And I think that would be really cool.
And I don't think going that route with skins would sacrifice the beloved atmosphere and immersion that a lot of people talk about. Right? With BF5, you have... Yeah. With 2042, or 2042 more egregiously so than BF5. But even in BF5, you have... Wasn't there a maid character?
That wasn't a
was that a meme?
Okay. I'm 99% sure that was
Daniel. That wasn't real. Forget I said that.
Shenanigans.
Yeah. So wasn't there a guy with like, he just looked kind of over the top in some people's opinions with like the big white beard and the blue military outfit and all the medals and the hat.
Yeah, what did they call him?
Yeah,
The British people called him like Captain something something because he
Captain
was like
something something.
on the fish sticks,
Yes,
boxing,
yes,
and like that's
exactly.
literally what he looked like. And
That
everybody
wasn't.
kind of
People wanted in BF5 obviously the World War II sort of nameless grunt thing where you have very historical cosmetics, blah blah blah, which actually kind of were provided. I kind of liked the default customization of BF5. I didn't think it went over the top, but 2042, I have an NTW 50 skin that looks like I can go to like Target and pick up like a Nerf gun sniper and it would look like the NTW 50. It literally has a dinosaur on it. I have a McKay skin where my helmet is like the jaws of a velociraptor. Okay? And I use it because people complain about it in game, like, oh, it's fucking stupid.
I think those things are fun when they come when the game is established. Like if you want to do over the top kind of ridiculous things, like give it a year, give the players an opportunity to like really dig into the game, to take it, to feel comfortable, to, acclimate to everything. And then if you want to introduce some goofy stuff like, okay, Santa Boris, like at this juncture, if Santa Boris came out for 2042,
Screw it.
I'd be like, all right, I'm doing this for like however many more months until the next game is released. What everybody should get Santa Boris. I would love to see Santa Boris everywhere.
Cowboy McKay is another absolute, just an amazing skin, incredible skin, with the government 4570, dude. And it just says, oh my god, the voice lines really don't even tie into it at all, which actually makes it even better because it's just so stupid. Like, but I think introducing kind of wacky cosmetics a year into the game, I think the Battlefield community is actually so hard-line against it that they won't accept it ever. Which is
maybe. I don't know.
They certainly can't do anything they do in Warzone with like Beavis and Butthead.
That first year matters.
Oh, you're so right.
Like if it is absolute pandemonium for a year, like is their tolerance level going to be really low for things like that? Yes. If they drop Battlefield 6, it works well out of the gate. Everything is well received. Like it functions properly. Like the map design is awesome, and it's a wonderful experience. Like that definitely changes your perspective and how you're going to react to things. If you're like, I've been having a ball for a year, like sure, like if this is what you want to put out, like I'm playing this game long term. Like I'll support the devs because they built a good game and they're doing what I want them to do and they're producing experiences that I like 100%. Like
I've refused to buy skins for BF5 in 2042. I've never, and it's so funny. Whenever there's a skin my chat wants me to buy because I think it's funny, I'll be like, who's donating? Literally. Like I am not buying these skins. First of all, I'm not giving EA my new credit card. They already have the old one.
Are you gonna write it off on your taxes though? Or are you gonna
Maybe I should do that. Oh man. Oh.
No,
but I don't think
hat.
It's stemmed in. I don't personally think the game is good enough for me to actually warrant spending God knows how much money on these skins. I mean, very briefly, I don't want to go on a Delta Force tangent. Delta Force, dude, oh my god. The skins in that game cost a ludicrous amount of money. It's insane. But if BF6 is great and the cosmetic direction is great, dude, I would actually be relieved to feel justified enough to purchase skins in a game, because that means the game to me is actually good enough that it warrants that.
Yeah, and that you have that positive connection with the experience.
Yes, of course.
Like, you know what, they earned it. Here's my
$20.
Yeah, give me the damn McKay hat.
So if there's anything, is there anything else you want to touch on in terms of like BF6, or maybe we can get the official Flakfire prediction for BF6?
I'll get to that in a minute. I did want to talk about one thing. I don't feel super strongly about this, but I feel like the community could potentially have a concern with it. And that is kind of the training roots that exist
Okay.
in Battlefield Labs leaked stuff and whatever we've seen online.
Official stuff now.
Yeah. Do you have any concerns with readability because of that?
Because
So,
of the training paths.
yes. So, like, you've got 4 different levels. How do you know that, somebody has unlocked faster health regen? Is that potentially a problem for you?
So I think that is actually a valid concern. I think what they should do with that is similar to how they handled class identification with spotting. So they already made the spot symbol in like 2042 and maybe even BF5. And maybe actually games before that. They made the spot symbol the class symbol. So if you spot someone, boom, that's a medic. Spot someone, that's an engineer. That's a wrench. You know it's an engineer. What they should do is for each individual training path, they should create a very distinguishable symbol that is associated with each training path. So for instance, if you spot somebody in BF6, you get their class symbol, what they're playing, and then next to that symbol, you get the training path they have selected. That doesn't necessarily tell you what level of the training path they're at, but it tells you what training path they're using. And if you know what training path that is, you can know the things they have.
Yeah.
So I think that's good.
Some people might look at it as like, well, that's, not really a realistic thing, or, you should have some level of unpredictability, and I 100%, and anytime I die in the game, I'm like, that was my fault. Why did it happen? What did I do wrong? What was this? Like, oh, I should have expected maybe that, I was spotted, or that, this or that or whatever. But I was just curious because I look at it, it's like, those kinds of things. And we talked about Battlefield 2042 being a frustration simulator. If I look at it, I'm like, how the hell did that person's health regenerate so quickly, when they should have been, easy to knock down? And I could see that, potentially being something where it's like you just kind of throw the controller down because you can't believe that happened, or you missed it by that much. And if that, wasn't there, or maybe you would have, kept firing if you'd known.
I think that has a
kind of
lot to do with specialists making the classes more annoying to identify. Because if the assault class was just one person, you would be able to tell that it's the assault class. But the assault class is 4 people, right? Sundance, McKay, Zane,
Yeah.
Irish, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard at a glance sometimes for people to understand that. Dozer, not Irish.
Okay, I was gonna say Irish doesn't fit in that with the
Yeah, I was like,
abilities. I loved Irish in 2042.
Irish.
But again,
I played Irish in well, this is way back. I played Irish in the only Battlefield 2042 tournament that I guess ever mattered. I played that in my teammates in competitive, so that was fun. He was very good in competitive.
It's a fun, counter to a lot of things I talked about. I love counters to things.
APS is so needed with the amount of shit they're putting in this game, dude.
Yeah. So you had asked, what do I think is going to happen with Battlefield 6? I think it's going to do well. Okay. I think it will do better than Battlefield 5 did. Certainly better than Battlefield 2042. I think that EA is going to have to heavily manage the narrative surrounding the release of the game. I think that they cannot afford to make silly, egotistical comments. I think that they need to have a solid product at release. There was that report from Ars Technica that came out a couple weeks ago, and of course everybody's been talking about that. I think I watched your video on it.
Big Doom posting as a result of that.
You kind of looked at it and say it's not really consistent with what we're seeing out of.
I made that a main point. The article, it tells a different story from what we've seen.
Yeah. And so as long as, and I think that bodes well for the game, as long as the game launches and is fundamentally sound as a game, technically sound as a game. I think it will do well. Certainly better than 2042. I think the commitment to a much stronger class system will absolutely benefit the title. I think that there are a lot of wild cards that are present. Like we look at, there have been those rumors of some kind of battle royale. I have no idea what that is going to look
Gauntlet
like.
as well.
Yeah. I think that they absolutely need to have some kind of free to play mode if that is the battle royale. I think that that would be the way to go.
It better be.
For that, yeah. Well, I'm
Better be
not
free to
sure
play
why
if they
you're
have it. I mean,
why you're building it otherwise.
what are you doing
Um,
otherwise?
but I think that they've learned a lot of kind of painful lessons from Battlefield 5 in 2042, and I think that we can see those lessons applied in what we've seen so far for Battlefield 6 and through labs. So
There's been a definite. Okay, we're locking in on this stuff.
yeah,
I mean, you can
and
kind of see that.
it's really going to depend on how they manage themselves, and how they manage the launch of the game.
First
You know,
impressions. I hate how important first impressions are nowadays
Yep.
for games.
you
It's
get
to the
one.
point where if the next Battlefield game, if I go live on launch day for BF6 and people come in the chat and they can visibly see the game basically isn't up to par,
Yep,
it's over.
you're cooked.
You're so done at that point because the narrative becomes everything about that.
Yep.
Not about, oh my god, this game's so cool, holy shit, that we're back, we're so back. It becomes, oh my god, no.
Yeah. Well, and I think again this comes back to, like, there are people out there who want to believe that. They want it to fail. Like, they absolutely want it to fail.
Fuck those
think-
people.
I think content creation is also a problem in that regard, because you look at it, you see it in other elements where it's just like somebody's going to crap on a game, no matter how good it is, simply because
People have said that about me. It's like, bro, no.
you've had moments, okay, but for the most part, the critiques have been valid, right? Like, and it's not like you want to see the game fail,
Never.
right? And you're not stoking the flames of something to kind of personally benefit from the game's failure. Because you look at it, we saw a ton of that with 2042. There were people just absolutely just roasting it for the sake of roasting it. Like, they were coming up with reasons to roast it. I'm like, you don't even need to do like, the reasons are there. Like, you don't have to invent new reasons, right?
I always want to see the game improve and succeed. That is always why I critique anything. Like, dude, this could be so good. Can you please do this? Like,
Yeah. And
please change
so
that.
I think that, if they're aware, people want to see them fail. If they're aware that, oh, if we misstep on something like this, it's going to be a problem, then they'll have a much better launch. But I do think, especially with the history between 2042 and 5, like, the technical side of stuff has to be there. It's got to work out of the gate. It's got to be complete. It's got to be polished. Like, that's the thing. So that Ars Technica article, somebody in the comment was like, it seems more believable, like it'll be released next year. Like,
Yeah,
I
the
don't
big debate about the
have
release.
an issue with that. Again, we don't know the development state of the game. So, like, looking at it, I think it's now July 15th. We haven't had an official announcement yet. I think that would be cutting it very close to that traditional window. Again, we don't have the data. Maybe they're like, well, if we announce it, release, then, like, there'll be more hype and people will want to play it and, this and that.
Almost like an Apex drop sort of thing. Apex Legends just kind of came out.
Yeah, I mean, we could have
That would be ballsy.
something
for them
like
to do.
that happen, between now and, what was it, March 31st of of next year. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's complicated because GTA 6 got pushed back, and I think that kind of makes releasing towards the end of that window more
Impossible.
intimidating. Yeah, I'm
I
not
don't think
sure
they should
that
do it.
I'd want to go toe to toe with that. But at the same point, I don't want to see like a piecemeal release where it's just like, okay, we're doing the multiplayer and the battle royale now, and then in 2 months the campaign is going to be out. I think that's a possible structure
Yeah.
that we might see, because I do think that the problems posed by the issues behind the campaign development that we read in Ars Technica um, do make that a possibility. I think Battlefield 5 really suffered from its fractured release. Like, we look at it, I don't want to see that again. It's like, you got the multiplayer, and then a month later,
everything
Firestorm
has to come
came,
out at once.
and then we got The Last Tiger, and it's hilarious because I do a lot of videos in Battlefield 5, and if I do anything on The Last Tiger, people are like, "What is this? What game is this? What?" It just completely got swallowed up by the void of post-launch content, and after everybody walked away from the game, so it just doesn't exist until they see it, and they're like, "Oh, that's interesting. What game is this?"
Yeah.
So like I want it all there out of the gate. Like, and you mentioned it, like you want to see the game succeed. Like, I'm
So
100%.
bad.
Like, I want to see it succeed because I'm a Battlefield fan. I want to play it. I want to see it succeed because like I want that franchise supported down the road. I want to see it succeed because I know developers working on the game, and they work hard and they care about what it is that they're doing. And I want to see them, be proud to stand behind a product and be like, I helped make that.
Yes.
And, the amount of work that goes into that, and the long hours and crunch and this and that, like I desperately want, the veneration for them, so they can be proud of what it is that they did.
Yeah, I think I want this Battlefield to succeed more than ever, not only just for the success of Battlefield, but I think if you look at the FPS landscape in general, the next Battlefield succeeding would be humongous for FPS. The FPS is an absolute desolate wasteland, especially for respawn shooters right now. Call of Duty is in a completely unrecognizable state with the same problems that it'll always have, because they're never going to change anything. They're not going to nerf, a controller aim assist. They're not going to change EOMM. They're not going to change SBMM. They're going to continue with like the almost predatory battle pass / microtransaction thing.
Well, and the priority will always be Warzone.
Of course, yes, and the priority will now be heavily slated to Warzone just because times change and everything. Battlefield has left a hole where it should have been for the better part of a decade now. Some people would argue ever since Battlefield 1. I think FPS desperately needs that sort of variety in it. Like, I want to see, Battlefield, Call of Duty, Halo, all these sort of different games, but they're all equally or proportionally successful. And I think this time around, if BF6 succeeds, the amount of new players that would come in would be nothing like we've ever seen before.
Yeah.
I think it would be astronomical. I think it would dwarf dwarf BF1.
100 million players?
If the BR is good, if the multiplayer is good, and the BR is free to play.
Yeah, I think that's
it
possible.
Could reach. I don't think 100 million is insane. If it reaches 100 million players, I've already said on Reddit, like, I'll fucking shave my eyebrows off, literally. Like, dude, if 100 million players, insane, crazy. Like, if it actually happens, wow.
That would make your forehead look bigger.
That's
right?
the point. That's the entire point of it.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
if the battle royale is good and free to play, and the multiplayer is good, and the campaign's good, I think it has potential to beat BF1's player counts. Maybe not by much. Maybe it'll beat it by 2 million or 5 million, which is still a lot. But
Yeah.
I think in that Ars Technica article, they said BF1 reached maybe 30 million players. I think with the addition of crossplay, with the state of FPS in general, if everything is solid, the sky really is the limit for the game.
How important do you think then? Because talking about areas in which we have confidence in, not necessarily developers, but I think overall strategy here.
Yeah,
How important do you think post-launch content
it's
is
so important.
for a game, and how confident are you in
So important.
their ability to deliver that, providing, like, the game is successful?
So
We're gonna
important. It's
be
so important.
waiting 19 weeks before we see, additional stuff come out, or what do
It
you
needs
think?
to be consistent, and it needs to be an acceptable amount of content. We are never going to get the same amount of content that we received with premium. That era is
Yep.
done, in my opinion. We will never see another Battlefield 1 French DLC with 6 maps. That will never happen again.
I want to go back.
I want to go back so bad. However, I think the most realistic expectation that would still be possible for them is something along the lines of every 3 to 4 months, we see the live service thing kick in, where this is what I want. I'm talking about my personal wants for the game that I consider a minimum. Okay. Obviously, we're gonna get a new battle pass. Minimum 2 maps per 3 to 4 months. Minimum. Weapons. It becomes a difficult thing with weapons because from the labs leaks we've seen, there appears to be quite a lot of weapons anyway. At a certain point, you have to start cloning damage models and putting them on different weapons. That's what BF4 did. BF4 is like, some people call it the king of clone weapons. Does that matter? Probably not for a lot of people. Some people like using a cool gun, right?
Yeah, they're
So
visually different.
Visually different. So in my opinion, you have the battle pass, the bare minimum, like 2 new maps, and I think bare minimum new weapons would be somewhere between 3 to 5. And then from there, you have, perhaps other things, obviously like new skins or whatever, that'll be in the battle pass. It also perhaps every half a year, every year, I'm not sure how often Warzone does it, perhaps it introduce a new Battle Royale map, right? So we'll have to see what they do with that. But there has to be a substantial amount of content that is consistently delivered. It absolutely cannot be anywhere near the amount of content Battlefield 2042 received. It just can't. There's no I don't care. There's no excuse. Like, hire as many people as you need. I don't care. It's we need to fucking lock in.
Yeah. I do agree with that, and I do think it's unfortunate in regards to premium that like, that's gone. And like, we're not going to see that kind of stuff come through again.
F in the chat for premium.
It's sad because it's one of those things, like, if they wanted to deliver those things, they could. Like, they absolutely
the times
could.
have just simply changed. These companies have identified a new corporate strategy, right? So that's what they're doing.
Yep. F in the chat for that.
Yeah.
That is a bummer.
That'll wrap up the Battlefield portion, unless you have maybe one final brief comment, and then I'll segue into something very out of left field that I think you'll like. But
I don't know. I
think we covered a lot.
I just want to reiterate, like, I'm excited for the next game. Like, I really want it to do well. Like, as a content creator, as somebody who plays the game, like, I think that they need to, and the chat might feel a little bit differently about this because it's not, necessarily something that they're a part of or privy to. I think treatment of creators needs to be better.
Oh my god.
Than it was.
The Ghost Gaming situation is insane.
Yep.
That's insane.
There's some other things there. I think that, like, creators need to feel supported if they want you to support their game.
Well, how about me getting suspended for a YouTube video? My in-game account.
I don't know. I only make positive, happy content.
You're basically saying don't shoot. Don't shoot, Flag.
I'm just saying, and it's very interesting because with Battlefield 5, like there was a lot of kind of creator meetups and there were opportunities to kind of strategize and to get to know each other and to feel like support and to feel part of like a group. And it was really good for morale. And 2042, nothing. There wasn't really any of that. And I think that, over the course of 2042, the creator environment,
Yeah.
it just evaporated. And, those relationships are not what they once were, like Westy got married. I didn't get invited to Westy's wedding. What is that about? I don't know if he's going to watch this, but what the hell, man? No,
well,
I'm
it's
kidding.
That's why I didn't know that lore. So
Yeah, no, but I think that would be beneficial. I think to generate, positive sentiment around the game. I think that carries over into other aspects of it, of the community. And I think just positive energy is good. So like I want to see that for the next game. Like I'm not saying I'm not going to critique things that need to be critiqued, because I try to do that, albeit in a constructive manner. But like I'm ready. Like release the next game. Let's go.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I can stretch the shorts content much longer.
I also think there is an extremely negative community connotation towards the EA Creator Network.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do with partially because of like some behavior of creators within the EA Creator Network. The general consensus for a lot of people, and this it doesn't make sense for everyone in it, obviously, but the general consensus I would say is, oh, anyone in the EA Creator Network is like a shill or something. Like Ghost Gaming was in the Creator Network, and well, I don't know, he never really changed how he acted.
I think there's also like the myth of like, oh, we get compensated for things.
Oh my
like,
god,
we don't. We do not.
YouTube viewers have yet to find out
that you the last time.
Yeah, YouTube viewers have yet to find out that if the video is being like sponsored, guys, I have to legally disclose that, by the way, and you can see that it literally says paid promotion like in the upper right hand corner. It's blatantly obvious and is a legal requirement. So I don't think people understand that at a large scale. But yeah, I've always found that funny. And I want to round this off. So it's going in a completely different direction.
Okay.
We've been talking about fragrances, Flakfire.
Yeah.
I did not know the lore that you're apparently getting into fragrances. We can talk about this for hours if you'd like.
Yeah. I've seen the fragrance channel, but much like some of the other things, like I just don't know a lot. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, or oh, I like this or like that. And you wept when you found out my wife was allergic to lavender, and you're like, that's an entire dimension of stuff you can't use. Yeah. So, yeah,
that's brutal. Oh man, so like, what is your? Do you just do it for like the utility aspect? Like, oh, this smells cool. I'm just gonna wear it.
I don't know. Like, I think it's the same way because we also talk about watches too.
Yeah,
and I think it's just something. As you get older, you're just like, oh, these things that were sort of like innocuous and boring are interesting now. Or like you appreciate like the different aspects of something or another. So like with watches, for example, I really like GMT watches. And like most of my watches are like that because I like to travel. My family was over in Europe, so I like to know what time it is.
The time zones.
Where they're at over there. And for fragrance things, it's like, hey, I just want to smell nice. Like I don't feel like that's a difficult thing. Like,
yeah. For me, I'm at the point where like it's just such like an art form for me, and it's so personal for me, and like I've bought and sold so many things, probably upwards of like 180 things I've owned in total now. I cull my collection regularly. I just recently came across a brand that is beautiful, that I didn't know about. And that's what's so fun about this. Once you get past sort of the designer stuff, you know, your Chanels and Dior's and all that,
Yeah.
you realize there's just like some infinite sea of things, and there's just something for everyone, and it's really kind of fun to dive into that. Came across a brand called Profumum Roma. They are like family owned, Italy, obviously based in Rome. They have a fragrance I just found yesterday. I've been testing it for like a week, and I decided I'm gonna get it eventually. It's called Thundra. It is such a unique fragrance. I have smelled thousands of things. This is such a unique one. The thing with this brand is everything is so linear, so there's not much change from the start to finish, right? So you spray it on, it kind of smells like that way until it sort of evaporates. And it's this very slightly clean, musky, minty patchouli. And it is the most serene, calming smell I've ever come across. And it just lingers for literally like 16 hours and just sits so close to the skin, doesn't annoy anybody.
Yeah.
That's such a unique fragrance to me.
I also think like the appeal of like fragrances and watches and things like that are, you know, it's a dimension of privacy and control.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
like
your own
and again,
personal thing.
I think as you get older, like you realize there's a lot of stuff that you're like, I'm not as in control of of my life as I thought I was, but I can control this,
Yep.
right? Or you're like, I like that, or you know, you get into things and you're like, I appreciate the depth of something. I think perhaps that's also a reflection of how shallow much of, you know, social interaction is, and you know how we view the world in media and all these other kinds of things, that we encounter something with depth to it, we're like, wow, that's like, I'm really interested in that. Like,
Yeah.
where does the rabbit hole go?
And I've just really enjoyed throughout building my collection, finding out all the little different facets of everything that I like. Because I have my entire collection, I try to keep it very diverse. I don't like redundancy. So it's really amazing. I find brands that are run by one person, like Andy Tower. He makes fragrances in his basement in the mountains of Switzerland. Like, okay, he makes incredible things that I really enjoy. But then I also like things from brands that are very mainstream, like Chanel. Chanel makes, they're notorious for, not notorious, but they're very famous for what they've done in fragrance, and of course Guerlain with their history and all that. So, I really enjoy that aspect. And then one thing that's coming up in a lot when I obviously go out with, you know, my girlfriend, we go places, walk around.
Yeah.
Conversations have sparked like out of the blue where, you know, I don't spray a lot on, but some things I wear are stronger than others and I have to be careful. But I'll be standing next to somebody in close proximity. They'll be like, you smell amazing. And then like this whole conversation, they're into fragrances. We talk about our favorite things, and it's fun. It's just like a fun thing to talk about with people.
I was laughing earlier too, because like for me, like I'm the bargain hunting person.
Oh, I am too.
And like
100%.
I absolutely love that. So because I told you my experience with buying some
Tell the
stuff
chat
like,
this is amazing. This is amazing, chat.
I need to be able to break stuff like from a like purchase standpoint. So like I was buying something through Micro Perfumes, and Micro Perfumes had like 40% off of like full bottles or whatever. And then through my credit card, which is Capital One offered 65.5% cash back. So I just went on there and I wound up getting like a bottle of Creed's Arolfa for like $100. Like I think it's actually like less than that. I also bought a couple other things for my wife.
Dude.
But I looked at it, I was like, I need to, you know, like I have to figure out how I can break this. And I was able to do it. Like they credited me it was like $240 cash back is what they gave me for the order on the thing. But like that's another aspect of it. Like looking at it, like for me, it's like, okay, like I really want this. I don't want to pay that much.
However, I'm not paying retail.
I will wait 8-9 months until that one moment when all the stars align and I'm like, yes, we're gonna go for.
I just thought that was such a. I just relate to that so much because, for those who don't know, the bottle of fragrance he bought, Creed Aralfa. Creed Aralfa retails for somewhere in the range of, I think, $425 to maybe up to $495, and he got it retail via like deals for $100, which is hilarious.
Yeah. So I think it's fun. I also did the same thing with my TV, but that's like a whole nother.
As you should.
Another 65% cashback period.
As you should.
But you know, I haven't per se had that experience yet. You know, but it's also something like I teach, so I'm in a room full of like 30 people. Like I would like to smell not terrible. Like that's also
yes.
the thought process behind that. So yeah, but I mean, like it's a great thing. I would tell anybody who's watching the podcast, like if you're passionate about something and you know somebody tells you shouldn't be or wants to give you crap about it, like don't listen to them.
Literally ignore them.
My dad is very into electrical insulators. He has about 2,000 electrical insulators.
What even is that?
That is the thing that's on the telephone pole that the electrical wire winds around.
Okay.
So they're like different colors, different shapes, but they're all made out of glass. Some are made out of ceramic. I know way too much about this because, you know, as you do, you ask your dad about his hobbies and you have to kind of pretend to like them if you want him to talk to you. Like typical guy experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I just look at him like that's the weirdest thing that I've heard of, but you know what? He's passionate about it. He's interested in it, and I think that's fantastic. So if you're interested in stuff and other people like don't care, doesn't matter.
I have a rose fragrance by a company called Parfums d'Empire, and they kind of make things the old way. It's run by one person, trained chemist, all this stuff.
Okay.
Very traditionally feminine rose fragrance, but it is so beautiful that I just don't care. And I remember I wore it once, like, and I was just walking around. My dad was like, "What are you wearing? Like, is your girlfriend here or something like that?" I'm like, "No, this is the most incredible Turkish rose oil extract, blah, blah, blah." He was like, "Okay, that's totally whatever. That smells. I mean, it smells amazing. Fine."
It's also like the psychology of it. Like I always found that fascinating because I've got a master's degree in communication and specifically like cultural communication. So it's all about, you know, like how we form meaning out of like all of these things, and just like with perfume, like what constitutes a masculine scent and why?
Once you get deep enough into the rabbit hole,
it's just it's fascinating. Yeah.
Once you get deep enough into the rabbit hole, even though I went into perfumes and all that with, oh, I'm gonna only wear masculine stuff, it completely dissolves away at a certain point. You realize you just love the hobby, you love the art of it, you appreciate the beauty of maybe something that's been used. Like I have a fragrance that I'm wearing today called Chypre Azeral by Les Indemodables. It uses 10% pure Sicilian orange extract, and it's the only fresh fragrance I've ever come across that actually lasts and smells natural, and it is amazing. So same with that rose one. You appreciate the raw materials, you appreciate maybe some narrative aspects of fragrances, some tell a story, which is super weird. The lore behind them. I have a fragrance by Serge Lutens called Filinagi. The bottle design is supposed to represent a woman's stiletto high heels. It's supposed to represent like a dark, very strange, mystical sort of forest smell. It's very, very abstract, but I appreciate it for that.
It's art at the.
It is.
Right?
It is absolutely art.
Yeah,
and it's way better than the modern art that I see in museums nowadays. I'll tell you that. So, we'll end it off here, I suppose. Thank you guys. Thank you, Flakfire, for attending. I know you're a busy man.
No, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yep. The next guest, you guys will not believe. I'll just tell you that right now. Thank you, Flakfire, for coming on. Maybe we will have a repeat episode. Maybe perhaps when BF6 comes out, or maybe something controversial comes up we want to talk about.
Yeah, there you go.
In the comments section, be sure to tell me who you want to see as the next guest. You guys are gonna want to see the next guest. You're literally not gonna guess it. If you enjoy the series, leave a comment. Tell us what you think. Subscribe to the channel. subscribe to Flakfire, because, I mean, you got to watch his Did You Know shorts. He makes the best Battlefield shorts on YouTube by far, not even close. Very informational, a lot of historical aspects tied into it. You'll learn a lot while also watching someone that's an OG of the Battlefield community. So all of his links will be in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.